Gladiators, the show where we discuss literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Hi, I'm Larry.
Hi, I'm Jesi.
I'm Charlie.
And I'm Josh. And for the first time, we are filming at my grandparents' place. They were very nice and considerate to let us film here.
Hospitable.
They are very nice and considerate and selfless.
It's a beautiful house.
Individuals.
Oh my gosh, it's
yes,
gorgeous.
The new paint.
It looks so good.
It looks very much like a beach house.
It reminds like my notebook cover. It would match perfectly on their wall.
I just realized there's a big ship up there. I just realized that.
We're giving you some very beautiful imagery because what we're going to be talking about today is not necessarily something that is beautiful in its imagery. And we're going to be discussing The Big Short by Michael Lewis, and it has to do with the collapse of the housing bubble and how slimy Wall Street is. Jesi, you have a discussion starter?
I do. So I'm really glad that we got to read this book because, you know, it really gives you like an insight on how, like you said, how slimy Wall Street really is. And my dad talks to me about money a lot, so I really wanted to read the book. I loved the movie. I hope it wasn't too boring for anybody since, you know, it was kind of my pick. I did find it a little boring in some spots, but...
I'm terrible at math, so...
Yeah, it really gives you just a nice little insight on Wall Street. So I kind of came up with, you know, just kind of a simple question. Everybody remembers who Greg Lippmann was, the one going around trying to sell the shorts. If he came to you with such an outrageous idea like shorting the housing market, essentially betting against something that has never happened before, would you listen to him or laugh him off, and would you take him up on his offer? Just kind of a personal question about like what you guys would do in the situation of everybody else in the book.
First of all, with regard to the point about this being boring, first of all, for 1A, I actually think that Michael Lewis did a good job fleshing out the characters. And number 2, after reading the book that we're going to be going over in a few weeks, this was accessible.
Yeah, I didn't find it boring at all. I thought it was fascinating.
Okay, good. I was going to say there were some parts I found a little boring, but I liked it for the most part.
I think that when you're if you're any kind of investment of that nature on Wall Street, if somebody gives you if somebody provides you with such an outrageous idea, I think it's common knowledge to really be skeptical. I have that sense of skepticism.
Because there were only a few people that actually took Greg Lippmann up on, you know, his presentation. Most people just laughed him off when he was going around trying to help people make money because it made him more money. Frankly, correct me if I'm wrong, but he got the idea from essentially the first person to figure it out, which was... Give me a second.
Warren Buffett?
No, it was...
I think his name was Burry.
No, yeah, Michael Burry. So he was the one that essentially came up with it because he noticed the pattern, and Greg Lippmann just took it and said, hey, you guys want to get in on this? And that's why he was laughed off. And I agree with you, you know, when you have an outrageous idea and you're betting billions of dollars, you know, against anything, you know, that could possibly go down. I mean, in hindsight, it makes sense that the housing market would have, you know, eventually collapsed, but at the time, it never had, and nobody foresaw it.
I think any empire of sand is bound to... Empire that's built on sand or on a dump like that is bound to collapse.
You know, that's what I was going to say. Something along those lines. You know, a wise man built his house on rock or stone, knowing it's not going to fall on sand or dirt. But I said it's just a quote or a proverb or something. But if somebody came up to me and offered me this kind of deal, first I'd say, where the heck did you get such a nice suit? Because I like it. And number 2...
It probably costs more than somebody's house.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and say, would you like to join my Scottish band I'm with? And if that didn't go over too well, I would say, you know what? You're doing this longer than I am. And I would be upfront with it and say, are you going to
Michael Burry.
No, that's
Michael
okay.
Burry, though, is probably the most interesting person
Oh,
in the
I
story.
love him.
I'm a bit biased, though, because he feels that he's an Aspergian after his son was diagnosed, and I can definitely relate there. But I think that his years of fascination with the stock market, and which I think the stock market is something that can really grab somebody because of the roller coaster in which the numbers go up and down, and how it's pretty much a casino for intellectuals. The stock
That's a
market.
good way.
If they're intellectuals, then I'm really not
I
doing
think
as
that
good.
with Michael Burry presenting Greg Lippmann with the idea, Lippmann is definitely the kind of person that's going to sell the idea, because that is a reflection of who he is. But Wall Street, I think when I came into this piece, I knew that Wall Street was slimy, and I think that this.
But now you really kind of like.
I think this pretty much assured me of that, and I feel that you also have Steve Eisman as well, who is a major player in.
Another great character.
Oh, I liked him
And they
too.
fleshed
He was
him out
just
well,
very
too.
cynical, and I think that's why I kind of like you said before, he really fleshed out the characters and really gave you an idea of who these people are and why they made the decisions they made. And it wasn't just based on intellect, it was based a lot on their personality. Like Eisman, he was very like, nope, everything's corrupt, everything's bound to happen, very Armageddon kind of, mind frame.
You could
so
see
then
the paint, black paint.
He's a contrarian.
Yeah,
Inevitable.
yeah.
I think that there's. I think that if somebody approaches Wall Street with a sense of common sense,
Would they know what that means?
a lot of people
There's-
there's one of two things: either they don't have common sense, or the money is a drug that
Either
takes
that
away
or
that
the young
common
ones are too optimistic.
Mm.
And that's really a problem with the the young what are they called, brokers, the the stock people, the traders, the young traders come in with a very optimistic outlook, thinking, yeah, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to make money, and they don't realize that the people above them are way ahead of them in the game and are essentially using anybody beneath them.
Mhm.
And to have that kind of mind frame that Eisman has, that it was common sense for him to take the deal, because it essentially told him, if you're right, that means I'm right, and
And I see this.
y'all are in trouble.
Again, I see this dog eat dog. I will, let's say I had that mentality, and I wanted to get ahead so badly that I stomp on my opponent. Okay, I mean, right there, that's slimy, but hey, I'm going to make another
It's
$10,000
definitely
million.
very, it's very vicious.
It is.
But
It's dog eat
the
dog.
issue at hand is people there's no consequences either for their actions, because after the collapse, the Treasury Secretary at the time, Hank Paulson, he's an establishment base, I would say. He asked for $700 billion in order to buy subprime mortgage assets from the banks. But instead, he ended up doling it out to Goldman Sachs and the other.
Morgan Stanley, I think, was the other one.
Morgan Stanley, it was Citigroup, and a few others helped bail them out. They really didn't need it, so
That money
they
should.
made mistakes, and you know who pays? The U.S. taxpayer. Every time.
I wanted to ask how that makes you. I mean, in 2008, I was 18, right? Yeah, 18.
Mhm.
I was hungry.
I was 18. I had no idea, I knew of Wall Street and that they made lots of money in the stock market, but aside from that, I didn't know anything. Now looking back, the taxpayers bailed everybody out.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that make you feel that our money kept these criminals essentially, out of jail and rich?
You know what makes me even more agitated? The fact that the Democratic Party sells itself as the party for the common man.
I'm with the birthday party.
And yet the last two Democratic governors, Phil Murphy and John Corzine, worked for Goldman Sachs. So it's a complete contradiction of what they stand for and who they choose to elect. And even more unfathomable is the fact that there were other options too.
And here's what gets my goat, no pun intended. All right, whatever. I don't have a goat, but still. Like I said earlier, these people will do anything it takes just to make an extra $10 or $10 million. You know, they can go out and buy a yacht and caviar and have fish dinners or whatever. You know, and I think in some places in the book they went to Vegas and blew a lot of that, shooting guns.
That was a lot of them. They were just mindlessly gambling, knowing that the U.S. taxpayer would help them out.
I wish I wrote down his name. What did you guys think of? I didn't write down his name. Eisman had that dinner with the manager of the who's in charge of shorting everything. Like,
He was coming up with those insurance
Was it at the
policies.
beginning?
yeah, he was the one that was making up the CDAs.
Right.
CDOs?
Or CEOs. What did you guys think of him? He was a real, part of my language, scumbag. Like, he was really something. And I believe, he referenced later on in the book too that, after.
Chow?
Yes. He at close to the end of the book, if I recall, after the crash, he laid low for a little while and then went back to doing the exact same thing that caused the market to crash. Did I read that correctly? Like,
I don't remember that.
I remember, I want to say it was like that epilogue or like the very last part that he basically just essentially, went back to making CDOs.
The wheel continues to turn.
Which is appalling to me because that's essentially what caused this whole problem.
If he made out on this problem, then of course he's probably going to go back to trying to do the same thing over again.
Which, I mean,
There's no way he
understand
made
taking
out.
money, but...
There's no way he made out on it. Because he was holding, the people that were writing those insurance plans were betting against the crash. So they did not do well. Right? Like, there was that one guy who worked at one of the major firms, and then they gave him his own company so that he could set him up. And he ended up losing a lot too. I mean, it's just...
If he feels he has nothing to lose, then...
Well, yeah, because he was just paid on commission. So it didn't matter to him whether people were buying the bonds or betting against the bonds. Because for every transaction, he was making money on it.
It's
So-
however I can earn the money, the fastest, the quickest. It's one of those get-rich-quick schemes. As my grandmother used to say. People want to get rich real quickly.
Wall Street is
Well, yeah.
to get rich quick. It's the it's among it is among the get rich quick.
Can anyone with a
It can be.
I mean, now, can anybody with a clear conscience, myself included, not, I mean, I like money, we all like money, but I couldn't see myself, as to go back, I know I'm going back to a discussion starter. I mean, if this man offered me this really great deal, I'd say, why don't you take me, the average worker, out to dinner, and we'll discuss it. And if I don't like what he's saying, basically we're going to make up like bandits. I'm like, yes. Okay, who's going to, and
Who's going to pay for it?
exactly, who is really going to pay?
And not to be one of those people who compares books to movies, because I do. I'm sorry.
I'm hungry.
But one thing that they do actually kind of take, whether it was actually said or not, we don't know, but they did address the issue that the people in this book essentially got rich off of the people who lost their homes and lived in their cars because they were evicted, they couldn't make their mortgage payment, and basically they got rich off of the horrors of
Yeah.
what the common
You know.
person has to go through.
I know. I mean,
Thankfully, it didn't happen to my family. Otherwise, I probably would know a little bit more about this prior to this book.
And we were lucky too, thank God, but
There were millions of people who weren't.
I would be in jail.
Yeah, there
Let's
were
just put it this
tons of
way.
people who
I'd be in
weren't.
jail if anyone tried taking my house over. Honestly, my dad, he works like a dog. My mother, she worked like a dog, and she's a stay-at-home. And then I'm working, and and I was going to school and working, and now I'm just working, trying to get full time, and just that alone.
That's the reason why I feel that Wall Street is a cloud that interferes with the common man's ability to actually. Usually, the common idea is you work hard and you work more, and that's how you make money. But there's so many other complexities that interfere with one's ability to obtain that.
They convinced so
And-
many people that they could afford a home, that they could afford the American dream, and they basically fed off of people's aspirations. It's like, oh yeah, you want a home? Sure. We're not going to check your credit. Here, this is an adjustable rate mortgage. You can afford it. Don't worry. And
more and
another
more
10
people,
years, you'll have a better job, and you can afford the new interest rate. It's fine. Take it. Go.
They do. They blow up the idea of money. They manipulate the idea, just like
they did. They fed off of the American dream, and I don't know. It just
And if there's no money to be found, they create more money, just like they do every time they raise the debt ceiling.
Yep.
And
they just make more of it, and which is I don't know.
And sometimes some people like them, why don't some people work or whatnot? They just sit around all day and drink beer. Well, you're kind of doing the same thing. You're making $1,000 times more, and some people just sit around because they can't work. Some of them can't actually work, and and some people who want to work, they can't, but they still have that drive, and they want to earn money. It's that independence factor.
And then when somebody hands you something that you want desperately, you're gonna take it. Like nobody in the right mind isn't gonna take it.
I guess I'm not.
Well, that's not true.
Well,
I'm ultimately, you don't sign a contract, you don't read, you think about, there is accountability on behalf of the homebuyer.
You gotta define.
Ultimately, everybody's responsible for their own actions.
So if I pick my nose on camera now and then regret it later, I'm kidding. I would never do
I
such
like
a
this
thing.
Warren Buffett quote at the beginning of chapter 2. Writing a check separates a commitment from a conversation.
Right.
Which there's so much of this. When it comes to Wall Street, it's almost a blurry moment. It's almost very blurry where the conversation, if it becomes in depth enough, it is a form of blackmail.
I think what's also something that you have to keep in mind too, because you're right, there is a lot on the home buyer. You are supposed to read, you are supposed to educate yourself. You can't just go out there and be like, okay, give me a house, and then you get one. You have to know what you're talking about to an extent. In order to have a conversation with somebody who's going to sit down with you and give you a loan or give you a mortgage. But the thing with Wall Street and the way they created these loans, and adjustable rate mortgages, and they like to, in my experience, they like to use big words that confuse the little man into thinking something's good when it's not as great as they
any form of
sound.
authority does.
So I fully agree. Everybody should be reading their contracts and knowing what they're signing before they do it. And I think they should be asking questions instead of just saying, I don't know what this means, but it can't be all that bad because they're offering me something that I want. So I feel like just Wall Street's just there to confuse the little man. And
of course.
Get whatever they can out of them, and then when you have nothing but a penny to your name, they'll rob you of that and move on to the next one.
If you're trying to launder money out of people, of course you're going to try and confuse them because it's going to
God
so
forbid,
much that.
Yeah, but God forbid we did that, right? God forbid we did that.
Right? We'd go to jail.
And once you get the government involved and you get them in the game, then you're screwed.
Yep, like a screw on a wall.
Towards obviously throughout the book, as we talked about Michael Burry, or as he talked about Michael Burry, how his clients received him. How did you guys feel about that? He was making them billions of dollars, and even at the end when he was like, here you go, you're welcome, they still basically ran away from him. How did you guys,
Unfortunately, it seems like a lot of people do that to, if somebody rubs you the wrong way, even if you have a condition, they seem to just turn the other way. Which Michael Burry had a very awkward disposition, as brilliant as he was, with his attire and his.
the way he carried
But then
himself?
again, he was very socially inept himself. He admitted himself that he would rather. He had so much discussion via email with people that he only actually spoke to a few times in his life.
I just find that, like you said, it has a lot to do with how people, are perceived. But, it just kind of astonished me a little bit how he basically was the first one to figure it out. Made his clients very, very rich. And in the end, they still turned around and said, yeah, no. And just walked away from him to the point where he ended up, retiring.
He walked away from
everything.
And he became interested in guitars.
Oh yeah.
Everything.
Water, if I did a little background research, Michael Brady, he's doing a lot of water investing, or privatization of water, I should say. Yeah. I want to follow him.
He's doing it.
The interesting thing about his interest in guitars, he's interested in everything about them except for playing them.
Yeah, and
He's interested in the wood. He's interested in the history, the mechanics of the guitar, just anything that there's to know, but he doesn't want to play.
Yeah, and he doesn't know how. And that's and now hello here. I mean,
It'd be like you being interested in everything about drums,
And
whether
I
it
am.
be the drummer, the drum parts, the drums.
the drums. I have,
Without actually
but not-
playing it.
but not
being
yeah.
a
Or
drum-
being
but,
told you're too young to play my drum set, because that's happened to me at times, especially obviously when I was too young to play a beautiful drum set. But then, my father would pull the drummer aside and say, let the kid play, and he'll put you to shame. And they would make some bets, and like, all right, whatever, let me play. Holy cow, the kid can play, and I mean, but still, I love drums. But if I didn't know the,
Okay.
still,
Already
But
got-
my thoughts on what you were talking about with
No, go ahead.
I like
Burry. I think part of it is the message, right? Like, people don't like to hear that the institutions that they rely on to keep the economy afloat are in fact completely inept and unable to
these keep me
to
up.
recognize these major bombs that can go off at any
It's a
time.
sense of denial.
Yeah, it's a sense of denial, and then once they dig into that position and spend years arguing with this guy, suing him, trying to get their money back, then you have to turn around and admit that you're wrong, and that he knew what he was talking about, and he was like one of 2 or 3 people in the entire industry who knew what they were talking about when it came to this. I think that it becomes difficult for people to recognize that they were so wrong.
I think that's actually makes the most sense when it comes to it, because nobody wants to admit they're wrong. And like you said, if they lived so long believing this lie, what would have happened if Michael Burry didn't catch it? How much money they would have lost? Everything that that led up to these events would have been put on a lot of these people. I mean, obviously they get bailed out anyways, so nobody actually goes to jail. But it's like kind of going back to what Charlie said. Like, are you okay with that? Like, just knowing, having that on your mind, on your shoulders, that you're responsible for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people losing their homes and their possessions.
And you're okay going to
everything.
Vegas and throwing $1,000 bills on someone who's, God forgive me, forking the bowl. You can sleep at night with a clear conscience.
I
can
think
do that.
clearly, the solution to all of these problems is to take part in your primary and go after the incumbents. Well, if the person that is in power is not able to fulfill their job, get them out. And if you're not comfortable, because in the general election, you're usually not, there's a lot of people that are not comfortable jumping to the other party.
Yeah, the
Part in your primary.
only problem is the people going
And keep
against
in
the
mind-
establishment Democrats are all socialists.
Keep in mind. Yeah.
I just put on
That's a tough one.
I just put birthday party.
And also, the object of a primary is not to make the straightest line.
with a
Because
roundest cookie.
at least half of the people vote party line. So the object is to pick the person you think is going to fulfill your interests the best.
Good faith. It's having good faith, and that's something paralegals, lawyers, and whatnot. Who-
That's the answer to everything.
yeah, good.
Vote in your primary.
Well, yeah, or eat cookies.
See,
And vote in your primary.
there's a popular saying too that says never attribute to malice what you can attribute to incompetence, knowing nothing else, right?
Never bring
And there
salad.
certainly is a lot of incompetence at play with what happened with this housing bubble.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, where do you lay the blame? Who would you say is ultimately responsible
I think
for
it's
what happened?
It's their fault because
Who?
Wall Street,
Who?
the government,
But who in Wall Street?
them as a collective, because they're being so reckless, and yet they're not. One of the best
See, I
quotes
think
that didn't need any explanation was this: the problem wasn't that Lehman Brothers had been allowed to fail. The problem was that Lehman Brothers had been allowed to succeed. So, for instance, if let's say the Cleveland Browns can't win a single game, they give everybody a raise and they give them the Lombardi Trophy. That doesn't accomplish everything. That accomplishes nothing.
But the thing is, like,
You
the
get-
sense of guilt, right, that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Who feels that? Because everybody is playing a very small role in a giant machine, you know what I mean? So how, like, I think that the people that probably felt the worst about it were the people that were actually giving the loans to the people
I
that they knew
would
couldn't
agree
pay them
because
back.
they're closer to the middleman.
Yeah.
Or the
They're the
middle
ones
class
getting-
man.
Yeah.
Like
The clean,
that
honest
could've just as
people,
easily
the
done
people that
But then again, who knows what they believe?
it takes it for
You
the
know what I mean? Did they believe that these people wouldn't be able to fill it out? Or did they
probably
get a
the ones that
model?
are taking Wall Street for its face value are probably the ones that
I
are
was
the
gonna
most
say, I
guilty.
think it was Eisman.
And that would
who
be the
said-
rating industries. That's who I think. S&P or what is it? Those rating agencies.
Yeah,
What is
I
it?
should have wrote down more of these names. Like I wrote down
Standard
some.
and Poor's.
Stanton Moody's or something like that.
Yeah.
And Moody's. Yeah, Moody's and
Dow Jones theory. I don't know.
No.
That's
It's those
something
two
else.
rating agencies. There's Moody's and something Poor's, I think. Anyway, those two.
Sackman and no.
They just wanted to keep their clients. They didn't care what these CDOs were actually made of. They just said, hey, if we give them a AAA, they'll stay with us. If we don't, then they're going to go next door to our competitor, and our competitor is going to give them a AAA. So either way, they're getting a AAA. Who cares? And it's like, and as I was saying, I believe it was Eisman who said it. Either they don't know what they're doing, or they don't care.
Yeah.
And I think that just sums up the book the best. If I had to use one sentence to sum up this book, it is that sentence.
Some of it's the
because
former. I think a lot of it's the latter. I think if you're going to be bailed out anyway, then of course you're not going to care.
Yeah, it was interesting too in the prologue too. I guess the author kind of saw this coming with back in the '80s when one of the major brokerage houses went public, so that it was no longer a partnership, so that the shareholders were ultimately responsible for the investment house and were accountable. So that if they're not accountable to like 2 people or 3 or 5 people or a closely held family corporation. It's like that, you know what I mean? So that they don't feel as accountable because it's not going to hurt their bank as much as it is.
Never bring a salad to a cookie party. And I say that only because Actually, I was going somewhere with that, but basically, don't be a stick in the mud. You know.
You're sticking in mud.
Already done.
I was going somewhere
Do we
with
have
this.
any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Yeah. You know,
I
wish,
could say something, but it'll have to be edited.
I wish people went to jail. Right. I think the idea of too big to fail is awful, and that these houses, these investment houses, should have went down. And then who knows who would be on top of Wall Street today? Maybe somebody a little bit more like Eisman, because he was the one that, you know, they were making a lot of money at that time on this stuff.
I think everybody in this book does like had a brain in their head.
One was a doctor.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
they
I
were
think
the ones
several
that
doctors, you
they
know.
were the ones that collapsed. They had this. They collapsed the most. They were the ones that.
And I
had
think
the-
like, and that's
felt the
the
most.
sad part is that
Yeah.
they had the brain in their head. They would be smart enough to, you know, make Wall Street better, but
and it's-
that's why they were smart
suffering.
enough to walk away.
Mhm.
Like,
Well, there was so little accountability that these major, you know, most of them, I think they did like one or two fell, but most of them were just like, so there was no room for competition. There was no room for people to go back and look at what they did wrong. And the people that, you know, are now just characters in a book, you know, they could have really been leaders in that, because people would have gone to them and said, where do we go? What do we do now? You people saw this coming, where do we go? And when you just pay everybody off and say, oh, don't worry about it, then, you know, it's just entitled to continue down the same road, making the same
But
mistakes.
there's so many people too that these were just those that were willing to speak up, and Michael Lewis acknowledges them as because they put a lot on their line just by speaking to him for this, because with the slime that comes from Wall Street, they could be creating a lot of trouble for themselves.
you know, I give them the, you know, Eisman,
Burry,
Ben
Lippmann.
Hockett, Greg Lippmann's, Michael Burry, everybody who spoke to Michael Lewis, you know, about this and helped him show the public with both the book and the movie, which, you know, had a lot of really big characters like Christian Bale and Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, you know, a lot of big name people to get them to watch this and say, this is what happened, keep it from happening again. And I think that was essentially, you know, what he set out to do with this book, not just to say, hey, this is what happened, but hey, this is how sleazy Wall Street is, and you guys can prevent it if you just do a little research. Stop putting so much faith in these people who handle your money.
Don't buy
Like-
the. You know,
Yeah, I've never gotten involved with Wall Street because it's such a complexity.
Me either. But all I know is just, you know, and this is another way of saying it. Don't buy the boat if you don't have the money. I mean, I have a little tiny boat like this, okay, and I'm happy to say I have a boat, and I get laughed at, but it's okay. But honestly, don't just live within your means. I mean, if you can afford it, and in 30 days from now you don't, and that bulldozer isn't standing outside your door saying, "Hey, I'm ready when you are," you know, just live within your means. I try to.
You just
As
also
best I
have
can,
to
you
pay
know, and
attention to who
exactly.
does what, because even
You know.
though, yeah, you can say that, you know, you just avoid Wall Street.
You gotta do.
If you put your money in the bank, you're involved with Wall Street.
Yeah. When my
If
money
you-
gets in the
yeah,
bank, I
take
take
a
it out.
loan.
I take it out. I
Mhm.
take it out.
That's what my dad does. He like
It
saves
But
comes
there's
in
common
and it comes
sense
out.
means of using a bank and then investing in
I have no
much
choice.
more.
There's a bank.
Because if you invest in you have to practice common sense too.
But when it comes down to it, I mean, what I'm based, and I mean, my dad is going to be so proud of me when he sees this, because he'll know that I actually listen to him. But
Hi, Jesse's dad.
yeah, I know, right? Hi, Dad. Basically, you know, you don't think you're really involved with Wall Street, but if your money is in the bank, you don't actually have money. You have a number on a computer screen.
Exactly.
And the bank that you entrusted with your money has that money not put away for you. You don't have your own safe deposit box with that money in it, unless of course you took out the safe deposit box. But you know what I mean? They don't have a giant vault with the money sitting in. No, everything's on a computer, and they're investing your money. Your money's not at the bank. If you go there and take out the dollar bill you put there last week, that's not the same dollar bill. It's a
It's
number
something.
on a screen, and that's why it's such a big deal, and again, my dad would be so proud of me. Stop doing everything online.
I'm not.
Because
I feel that the goal is to be as physically connected to your money as possible.
yes,
Yeah.
and that's what you really have to do. And in a way, this kind of proved that you need to be, because these people are gambling, like Charlie said, with your money, and they don't care.
And-
They don't give an F either way who it belongs to, or
Quack.
who they're screwing
But
over to do
even
it.
even still, even as value as much as
That's
cash has
flush.
more of a physical value, the value of cash the last time I checked was 4% of was 4%. So $1 is worth 4 cents. It's probably less now because they raise the debt ceiling all the time. And
How
just create
far
money
can
out
we
of thin air.
stretch? Yeah, how far can we stretch this?
Maybe it recovered because there's a bit more knowledge about money in the air.
I have
Let's do
another
that
book
way.
that I'm gonna read, once things calm down with, the seasons and or the sessions and everything, called The Day the Dollar Falls. Because we all know it's gonna happen, and it's coming, because if we, if you turn on the news for 5 seconds, you see what's happening. Like you said, the debt ceiling's being raised. People just think they can print money and have money, and it doesn't work like that. People can't afford to rent a room, let alone buy a house, because
And
our
these
dollar
are-
isn't worth anything.
and these are
The
anymore.
biggest mistake was to go off the gold standard.
Absolutely.
And these are I'm going to say 8 out of 10 of these people are the ones who want to work, who want to make something of themselves, and who
They're the
and
ones
are
that
getting
get
screwed over.
Screwed over, yeah.
The
Agree
other,
that.
the other 2% is, I'm not even going to say because we're still on
You don't
camera.
have to.
Okay, then.
And anyway,
I'll make it easier for you. How would we rate this on a scale of 0 to 5, half stars permitted? Larry.
I'd give it 4 stars. I think the only criticism I level against it is, and I'd like to know more about the background on how the government, like what role the government played, and with different regulations, and like I know that Dodd-Frank was.
Dodd-Frank wasn't mentioned once.
No. So I mean, that was that's part of my problem with it. The other thing is that I know that Bernie Mae and Freddie Mac were putting a lot of pressure on people to buy houses. Right, there's political pressure to get houses to low-income
Fannie
people,
Mae and Freddie Mac?
whoever they were.
Okay.
They don't even exist anymore.
I think you were mixing with Bernie Madoff, who
Bernie Madoff and
really screwed a lot of people over.
yeah, no, I'm sorry, but yeah. Those home loan people that were nationalized after all this, they there was pressure, legislative pressure and things to offer bad loans to people too, because of race or different issues like that, where they said, oh, black home ownership is down. We need to do more of that. In order to do that, we have to lower standards, and so a lot of stuff was freed up in the 90s and in the 2000s that kind of allowed this to happen, and I'd like to know more about that. So I say 4 stars because I think it does handle most things pretty well.
I think I gave this one 4 stars on Goodreads as well, or something. Yeah, I think I said 5 stars for 4.5 or 4 stars. I can't quite remember. But I really enjoyed it. I've actually I saw the preview for the movie way back when, and I suggested to my dad that we watch it, and we did. And I just found it so incredibly fascinating that I just watch it all the time now, because every time I watch it, I learn something new. I've made my boyfriend and his friends watch it, and sure enough, they took some of that information when his best friend went and bought a house. He took some of that information that he learned to go purchase this house. So I think it's a great story that I feel like every young adult should know, whether they read the book or watch the movie, just to give them a little understanding. Yeah,
For high school.
yeah.
High school though.
Coming out of high school too, like when you're getting closer to purchasing a house, yes, there's a lot of terms in it, but I feel like Michael Lewis breaks it down well enough to help the average person kind of understand.
And you gotta give Michael Lewis. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I think he did a great job making it understandable. so that you know what you're going into, because they flat out say everywhere that the banks are still doing this, exactly this. And sure, some people are smarter now, but the fact that they're still doing this is just atrocious, because that means, are we living in a housing market bubble now already? Like, I don't know. I gave it 4 stars, between 4 and 4.5. I really enjoyed it. Again, I'd like to know more of what led up to it in the government's part. I think that would be an interesting read, but I feel like that's also probably a whole separate book in itself. So
I'm gonna be nasty. I'm gonna give it a 3 because. But being that Michael Lewis was so nice to come out and actually, kind of say, hey, just so you guys know, this is kind of what we're doing. Kinda, no, he was. I'm gonna say he's the one that I have a little bit of faith in. I'm looking at this morally here. It's, he came out and he said, look, this is what we've been doing. This is what's happening. He exposed the old, not what may not have been exposed. So I'm giving it a 4, but I would have given it a 3 because I'm being biased, because they're all words we use on camera, and but I'll give it a 4. And cash, just for me personally, take the money when the money goes in, take it out. That's what I do.
You didn't break your record of how many ratings you gave the book. I'm giving this.
I'm confused.
I'm giving this a 3.5, and I'm sticking with 3.5. I like the way that Michael Lewis was able to flesh out the situation and so that it was accessible for the common reader. I like the way he fleshed out the characters. I feel that I had a few more questions and concerns coming away from the book. I think
it's supposed to do that. Just throwing that out. I think it's supposed to do that.
In a way, but I wish I knew more about the government's role. I wish I knew a bit more about the in-depth. But I think that I think some of the details, you weren't going to get so much in-depth from Goldman Sachs. But
like I said, that's a whole other book in itself.
All right.
Plus, the government's role. I mean, do they really tell us everything that happened? Let's be honest.
It's a whole other
but
book
at least
within
it's started.
itself. But it's kind of like the movie Inside Job, where
Just watched that movie not too long.
there were a lot of them that declined to interview.
Yeah.
So
This guy
One
here.
interesting thing that I want to throw out there is that there is a documentary. I don't remember what it's called, but it was a Frontline documentary, so it's probably available for free online. If you go to Frontline's website, that was all about Eric Holder and the Justice Department trying to go after these people and how that all kind of didn't pan out.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it came out probably, I want to say
Like a
about 5 or
hit,
6 years ago.
Yeah,
God
I was gonna
forgive me.
say, I think the line that sounds familiar. I think I may actually know what you're talking about. I also could be wrong. I don't watch a lot of Frontline documentaries, so.
But yeah, that's worth looking at too. I watched that a while ago. I'd like to see it again now that I've read this book to see, what I might be able to pick up from it. But it's worth looking at. It's a good documentary. It'll infuriate you, but
I would imagine any of that would infuriate you.
That's what I was going to say. Don't bring salad to a cookie party because it'll infuriate others. Thank you. That's what I was going to say.
Okay then, if you're interested in checking out the book, you can find different copies such as these. I got mine from Little City Books in Hoboken.
Mine's from Barnes and Noble.
Mine was from the internet because I don't like to buy stuff if I can just get it. I'll be honest.
Side and Moneyball, in case you guys didn't.
Yeah, Michael Lewis, he wrote Moneyball, and he also wrote The Blind Side.
And now
Oh, I
Major
love
Motion Picture.
Yeah, a lot of his works have been adapted, and this is actually
all 3 of those.
Yeah, I was gonna say all 3. I think are Money, because I know I've seen Moneyball that has that one fat kid. I can't remember.
Gee, thanks.
No, I think he's from Superbad.
Jonah Hill.
Yeah, him. I'm so bad with that.
And Sandra Bullock was in that other one.
Blind Side.
The Blind Side, yeah.
So his movies get good actors.
Yep.
But,
Be sure to join us next time for another episode of Burry Gladiators. For now, keep reading.
and eat something.